You know that feeling? It's like 8 p.m. and you just walk through the door after a truly brutal workday.
Oh, I feel you. Those days are the worst.
Right. And you climb maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 flights of stairs to your apartment, and you suddenly realize you are actually panting.
Like, genuinely out of breath.
Yes. You drop your bags, walk past the hallway mirror, and you just catch a glimpse of the dark circles under your eyes.
Yeah.
And you notice that softening waistline that definitely was not there a few years ago.
It just sneaks up on you.
It literally does. And you just let out this heavy, exhausted sigh. Honestly, sometimes it feels like just breathing in your 30s and 40s is a workout. So, 欢迎收听Med Decode. Welcome to Med Decode.
If you are listening to this right now and nodding along, please know you are absolutely not alone in feeling that heavy, creeping fatigue.
Seriously, you are not alone. It's exhausting.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into something that might actually explain why you feel this way. We have the brand new December 2025 evidence-based guideline on adult obesity in Taiwan sitting right here on the desk.
And it is a thick document, let me tell you.
It is. But reading through this, it completely flips everything we thought we knew about weight management and energy.
Wait, really? Everything?
Everything. But I want to make a promise right at the top. This deep dive is not a lecture. Nobody's here to make you feel guilty about your body or, your lifestyle choices.
Oh, thank goodness, because I do not need another reason to feel guilty today.
Exactly. Think of this conversation as a gentle confession to your body. It's a way to help you rediscover that vibrant, energetic version of yourself using the absolute latest medical science.
I really, really need this tonight. Because I look at myself and I constantly wonder, why did skipping 2 meals work like an absolute charm in my 20s, but now...
The rules completely change, right?
Literally. Now I can do the cardio, I can eat the sad little salads for lunch, and the scale just looks at me and laughs.
The sad salads are the worst.
They are. And the scale refuses to budge, so you start to wonder, is my willpower just completely broken?
Oh, I hear that from so many people.
Because, let's be real, when you are stressed out of your mind from back-to-back meetings, sometimes your only joy at the end of the day is some late-night fried chicken and a sugary boba.
Of course it is. It's comfort.
Yeah, and I am just so mentally exhausted from trying. I literally feel like I'm failing at basic adulting.
Okay, let's stop right there. Because that mental exhaustion, that's the very first thing the new science addresses.
Wait, really? The guidelines talk about being tired.
Absolutely. And I am going to push back hard against this willpower myth you're carrying around. The struggle you are describing has nothing to do with you being weak or lacking discipline.
It doesn't, because it sure feels like my fault.
It's not. You and millions of others are navigating what the experts now call a metabolic storm. The 2025 guidelines have made this massive paradigm shift.
A metabolic storm. That sounds, it sounds intense.
It is intense. They have officially thrown out the old, tired idea that weight management is just a simple math equation of calories in versus calories out.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Because that is literally all we've been told our whole lives. Eat less, move more.
Right, the classic formula. But it's outdated.
So if it isn't just a math problem, what actually is it?
It is officially defined as a complex, chronic, relapsing neuroendocrine disease.
Whoa. That is a mouthful.
I know, it's a lot of medical jargon, but basically, according to the data, over 1 billion people globally are living with this, and in Taiwan alone, over 50% of adults are dealing with it.
Wait, half of all adults in Taiwan? That's crazy.
That's staggering. And here's what is actually happening. When you hit your 30s and 40s, your hormonal landscape fundamentally shifts. We evolved as a species to survive scarcity.
Like hunter-gatherer days, famine in winter.
Exactly. So when you experience modern chronic stress like those back-to-back nightmare meetings you mentioned, your brain misinterprets that intense stress as a literal famine.
Oh, wow. So my brain thinks I am starving in the wilderness when really I'm just stressed about a spreadsheet.
That is the exact evolutionary mismatch. Your brain hits the panic button. It fundamentally alters your appetite hormones.
Which explains the boba cravings.
Precisely. It makes you crave high-energy foods, hello, late-night fried chicken, and it actively lowers your resting metabolic rate to conserve energy.
So my body is fighting me.
Your body is physically fighting to hold on to that fat because it honestly thinks it is saving your life. It's a brilliant evolutionary survival mechanism that is just completely backfiring in the modern high-stress world.
Wow. Knowing that it is a recognized biological disease process, that is weirdly comforting.
It takes the blame away, doesn't it?
It really does. It takes so much of the shame out of the equation. But here is the thing, and I am playing devil's advocate for myself here. What if your BMI is perfectly normal?
The BMI question.
Yeah, because I get my annual health check. My body mass index number is sitting right there in the green zone. So I am probably in the clear, right? I don't really need to worry about this metabolic storm if I still fit into my old jeans.
Well, that is such a common assumption. But here is where the science gets really interesting and honestly a bit deceptive.
Deceptive how?
The new Taiwanese guidelines specifically warn against relying solely on BMI, especially for Asian populations. There is a specific clinical profile they highlight called normal weight obesity.
Normal weight obesity. That sounds like an oxymoron.
It does, or, as it's colloquially known in Taiwan, the puff pastry demographic.
Are you kidding me? A puff pastry?
Yep.
What does being a pastry have to do with my metabolism? I mean, I love eating them, but...
Think about the physical structure of a puff pastry.
Okay.
It is thin, light, and crispy on the outside, but incredibly soft and dense with butter and fat on the inside.
Ooh, I don't like where this is going.
In clinical terms, it means you might have a perfectly normal weight on the scale, but an unhealthily high percentage of visceral fat.
Visceral fat, that's the belly fat, right?
Yes, the fat around the organs. And the experts emphasize that Asian populations are genetically predisposed to this. We tend to have less physical space to store fat safely right under our skin, the subcutaneous fat.
Okay, so where does it go?
Well, when we gain even a little bit of weight, our bodies panic and start packing that fat deep inside. It wraps it directly around our internal organs, like the liver and intestines. That's why they now emphasize waist circumference.
Waist circumference over BMI.
Yes. The warning signs are a waist over 90 centimeters for men and over 80 centimeters for women.
Okay, I get that it sounds bad to have fat around the organs, but I mean, isn't it still just passive padding? Like just a little extra insulation from sitting at a desk all day?
No, and this is a crucial distinction to make. Visceral fat is not passive padding at all.
It's not.
Not even a little. When that fat builds up around your organs, it essentially becomes a rogue, active organ itself.
Wait, what? A rogue organ?
Literally. It pumps out inflammatory molecules, they're called cytokines, directly into your bloodstream. It is your body actively sending out an SOS signal.
So this fat is actively releasing chemicals into my blood. What do these cytokines actually do to the body?
Think of your metabolism like a smart home heating system. Normally, insulin is the signal telling your cells to open up and take in the sugar from your blood to use as energy.
Okay, so insulin is like the thermostat.
Exactly, the thermostat working perfectly. But these inflammatory cytokines act like thick dust, completely blocking the sensors of your thermostat.
Oh, wow.
The insulin is still sending the signal, but your cells can't hear it anymore. This is called insulin resistance.
And because they can't hear it, the sugar just stays in the blood.
Yes. Because the cells aren't getting the sugar, the body thinks it's still cold, so it pumps out even more insulin and leaves all that sugar circulating in your blood.
That sounds like a disaster.
It is. This directly drives up your risk of the 3 highs: high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and high blood lipids, and eventually severe cardiovascular disease.
So you can look thin on the outside and have this massive invisible storm raging on the inside.
Precisely. That's the puff pastry effect.
I am genuinely dumbfounded. Mind-blowing. So being thin on the outside absolutely does not guarantee metabolic health on the inside. The waistline really is the alarm bell.
It's the truest indicator we have.
But, okay, if this is a chronic disease driven by a blocked internal thermostat, what am I supposed to do? Because casual diets and extra gym trips usually just lead to me quitting halfway through.
Which is completely normal, by the way.
Yeah, I end up feeling like a failure and deciding it's hopeless. When your biology is actively fighting you, how do you fix a broken thermostat?
Well, you don't have to fix it alone with sheer willpower. And this is the most empowering part of the 2025 guidelines.
I could use some good news right about now.
Here it is. When diet and exercise hit that biological wall, seeking medical help is not cheating. It is smart, effective management.
Medical help, like actual treatments.
Yes. The third edition of the guidelines highlights an absolute explosion of progress in obesity medicine. We're talking about the rise of incretin-based medications.
Incretin-based.
Yeah, you might have seen them making headlines globally.
Wait, do you mean drugs like semaglutide and tirzepatide? Because I feel like literally everyone is talking about those right now.
Those are the ones.
But aren't those just, fancy, glorified appetite suppressants like a quick fix?
Oh, they are so much more than that. It is crucial to understand how they actually work mechanically. They are not cosmetic weight loss drugs. They are metabolic correctors.
Metabolic correctors. Okay. How do they correct it?
These medications mimic natural hormones, specifically GLP-1 and GIP, that your gut naturally produces when you eat.
Okay, so they mimic gut hormones. But how does that help the broken thermostat we talked about?
Because in people dealing with this metabolic storm, those natural hormone signals are often incredibly weak or totally dysregulated.
The dust on the sensor.
Exactly. These medications act as a powerful translator. They go straight up to the appetite centers in your brain and say, hey, the famine is over. We have plenty of energy. You can stop obsessing over food now.
Wow. Game changer. So it turns off the famine panic.
It turns it off. And at the same time, they slow down gastric emptying. That means food physically stays in your stomach longer, keeping you full.
That makes so much sense.
And tirzepatide is particularly fascinating because it targets two different receptors, GIP and GLP-1, to fundamentally improve how your body processes sugar and clears out that visceral fat.
So it's literally repairing the communication breakdown between the gut and the brain.
That's exactly what it's doing.
That is fascinating. But what if someone needs more help, where they can't take those medications for some reason? Does the new guideline offer anything else?
Yes, and this is where medical technology is truly acting as a game changer. The guidelines heavily feature new endoscopic metabolic treatments.
Endoscopic.
Yes, particularly something called endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty, or ESG.
Okay, endoscopic.
Yeah.
So that means no major surgery, like no huge incision.
Precisely 0 external cuts.
Wait, what?
Traditional bariatric surgery requires cutting through the abdomen to alter the stomach, right?
Right, which is super invasive.
But with ESG, gastroenterologists use a flexible endoscope passed entirely down the throat.
Down the throat?
Yep. It has a tiny suturing device attached to the end. They grab the inside walls of the stomach and stitch them together.
You're kidding?
No. They essentially fold the stomach inward like an accordion.
That is insane. They sew your stomach smaller from the inside while you're asleep.
Yes. It reduces the stomach volume by up to 70%. You wake up with a much smaller stomach capacity, 0 external scars, and a fraction of the recovery time compared to traditional surgery.
I am mind blown right now.
And because the stomach is physically sutured and stretched differently, it also changes the way those hunger hormones are released.
Okay, hearing all of this, it is just so reassuring. Science really has our backs. I don't have to white knuckle it and fight my own biology in the dark anymore.
You really don't.
But, knowing me, I hear all this and think, problem solved. I'll just go to the doctor, get the translator meds or the accordion procedure, drop all the weight by next month, and never think about it again. But I'm guessing it isn't quite that simple, is it?
It is definitely not that simple, and I'm really glad you brought that up. We need to ground ourselves right here.
Okay, hit me with the reality check.
Fast weight loss is absolutely not the ultimate goal. In fact, doing this wrong can be really dangerous.
Dangerous how?
There's a brand new, highly critical chapter in the 2025 guidelines called sarcopenic obesity. And as populations age, especially in places like Taiwan, this is becoming a massive health crisis.
Sarcopenia is the loss of muscle, right?
Yes.
So sarcopenic obesity is losing muscle while keeping the fat.
Exactly right. Let's use an analogy. Think of your muscle mass as the engine of your car.
Okay. Engine equals muscle.
Right. It is what burns the fuel, meaning the calories, even when you are just sitting on the couch.
The resting metabolic rate.
Exactly. If you just take a medication or severely restrict your calories and starve yourself, you will see the number on the scale drop quickly.
Which feels great in the short term.
It does. But your body, in its panic, will break down your precious muscle mass for energy while stubbornly clinging to that dangerous visceral fat around your organs.
So you are basically selling off your car's engine to pay for gas.
That is a perfect way to put it. And if you lose your engine, your metabolism completely tanks.
Oh, and that's why the weight comes back.
Exactly. That is why people experience rapid weight regain after a crash diet. They've destroyed their metabolic engine. Plus, losing that muscle drastically increases your risk of falls, frailty, and mobility issues as you age.
That's terrifying.
So the new golden rule explicitly stated in the guidelines is protecting muscle while losing fat.
Protect the engine.
Always. If you are using these new medical tools, you must incorporate resistance training and high-quality protein into your routine. The medication is the bridge, but muscle is the foundation.
Okay, I hear you. It's not a free pass. It is super challenging to balance all of that, but it makes total logical sense. I still have to put in the work to protect my engine.
You do. And there is another vital engine you have to protect throughout this journey, which is your mind.
My mind.
Yes. Chapter 9 of the guidelines heavily emphasizes psychological intervention. Let's go back to that brutal, stressful workday you mentioned at the very beginning.
Oh, yes. The stress that makes me crave all the worst things at 10 p.m. I am intimately familiar.
Right. That stress triggers the release of cortisol, our primary stress hormone. High cortisol levels directly fuel intense sugar cravings.
So it's not just a lack of willpower, it's literal hormones demanding sugar.
Yes. And more importantly, cortisol physically directs the body to store fat right around your midsection. It actively builds that visceral fat we were just talking about.
So being stressed literally gives you belly fat. That is so unfair.
It's biology. The guidelines advise that fighting your stress with rigid, punishing diets only creates more cortisol. It's a vicious cycle. Instead, they highlight clinical studies on mindful eating.
Mindful eating, I mean, I've heard the term, but it always sounds a bit abstract. Like, am I supposed to meditate over a piece of broccoli?
No, it is actually a very grounded cognitive behavioral adjustment. Mindful eating is about recognizing your emotional triggers without judging yourself.
Okay, how does that look in practice?
When you reach for the fried chicken, you pause and ask, am I physically hungry or am I just incredibly stressed?
And usually the answer is stress.
Right. It is about bringing awareness to the action, removing the shame, and treating the body with compassion rather than punishing it. Befriend your stress, don't fight it.
I feel you. It is a complete perspective shift. It is a holistic approach, treating the mind to lower the cortisol, preserving the muscle to keep the engine running, and utilizing modern medicine to fix the broken thermostat. It really takes the heavy stigma away from the whole process.
It really does. And to bring this all home and make it actionable for you, I want to give you a tiny zero-pressure micro-action for your daily life.
Ooh, I love a micro action.
It is taken straight from the clinical text, and it costs absolutely nothing. You don't need to join a gym or run a marathon tomorrow. Just try changing the order of how you eat your food today.
Changing the order, like eating dessert first, because I could definitely get on board with that.
Nice try, but not quite. When you sit down for a meal, intentionally take 2 or 3 bites of your fiber or vegetables first.
Okay, veggies first.
Then eat your protein, and finally leave the carbohydrates and starches for last.
Veggies, then protein, then carbs. Okay, but if it all ends up in the exact same stomach, why does the sequence actually matter?
Because that simple sequence physically alters the mechanics of how your body digests the meal.
Really? Just from the order?
Yes. When you eat fiber first, it passes into your digestive tract and creates a physical, viscous mesh along the intestinal walls.
Like a net.
Exactly. Later, when you eat your carbohydrates, the sugars from those carbs have to pass through that fiber mesh to get into your bloodstream. It drastically slows down the absorption rate.
Oh. So instead of a massive spike of sugar flooding the blood all at once, which triggers a massive insulin dump.
Exactly. It lets your blood sugar roll like a slow, gentle wave. It prevents the severe spikes and crashes that drive your cravings an hour later.
That is brilliant.
It is a small, entirely free behavioral change that has a massive, measurable metabolic impact.
I can definitely do that. No extra time at the gym, no expensive supplements, just rearranging how I tackle my dinner plate to build that fiber mesh. I love that.
It's all about working with your body. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
The 2025 medical guidelines heavily emphasize the danger of weight stigma and discrimination, both in doctors' offices and in society.
It's just so prevalent.
It is. I want you to consider how the way we judge ourselves and the way society judges others about weight might actually be fueling the exact stress, cortisol, and inflammation that keeps us sick in the first place.
Ow.
What if genuine self-compassion is actually the most scientifically sound medical treatment of all?
That is profound. Health really is a lifelong journey of reconciling with your body, not a harsh exam you can fail.
Absolutely not an exam.
If you stumble today, or, if you ate the fried chicken last night, just dust yourself off. Every single moment of awareness is a step forward.
It's all progress.
So, to everyone listening right now who is juggling the stress, the exhaustion, and simply trying to do their best in a really demanding world, Sheen Cooley, thank you for your hard work at night.
And that's a wrap on this episode of MedDecode. I really appreciate you joining me today. If something we talked about sparked your interest, or if there's a medical term that's been bugging you, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, be a pal and share it with a friend. We'll catch you on the next one.